no resources to provide for those programs for young people. We will introduce youth rehabilitation and second chance programs. We will introduce rehabilitation programs for at-risk youth and for first-time offenders, giving them a chance to turn their lives around through education, skills training, and mentorship.
Because you must understand that St. Lucia had no new investments for a very long time, And these things are a fact, the verifiable fact, as I always say. There was no new investment in this country from 2016, 2017.
Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre continues to push the false narrative that between 2016 and 2021, there were no new investments in St. Lucia under the United Workers' Party. But the results and facts are clear. While the world battled a global pandemic, the UWP was hard at work laying the foundation for economic growth, creating real jobs, and attracting major investments that began to transform our economy. Projects like Cabot St. Lucia, the DSH Pearl of the Caribbean, ITEL BPO, and Ojo Labs created thousands of job opportunities for young people and professionals. We welcomed Inter-Caribbean Airways, while Digicel's OECS headquarters opened up. A group of investors also began construction of the Courtyard Marriott at Point Seraphim, further boosting investor confidence. Serenity at Coconut Bay was delivered, alongside the opening of Bellevue Hotel and the Harbor Club. Another investment is the state-of-the-art IAMJet private jet facility, which was built in Vieux Fort. We even signed a historic agreement with Royal Caribbean, Carnival Cruise Line, and MSC to develop a cruise home port in Vieux Fort, a game changer for tourism and job creation in the South. And let's not forget the Orange Grove Plaza in Bois d'Auge and the proposed Sanders La Sousse 380-suite resort, a world-class development that was tragically derailed by political interference from SLP operatives, robbing St. Lucians of hundreds of jobs and millions in economic benefits. Ironically, many of these same projects were opposed by Philip JP and the SLP while they were in opposition. Yet today, they enjoy the benefits and take credit for the progress they once tried to block. So don't be fooled by the spin. The truth is this: the United Workers' Party delivered. We built, we attracted investment, we created opportunities. And we did it while navigating one of the toughest global crises in recent history. The facts are clear and the evidence is everywhere. The United Workers' Party delivers. Philip J. Pierre is just trying to rewrite history as usual. Pierre, Pabo.
Jeremiah Norbert and his desperate labor comrades want you to believe that little was done in Micoud North under the UWP from 2016, despite the clear evidence all around. Even with a 2-year disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the UWP laid the foundation and began the transformation of Micoud North in a way the constituency had never seen before. We built the new Micoud Wellness Center, upgraded the Micoud playing field, built the new Micoud Early Childhood Development Center, constructed a smart block for the Micoud Secondary School. We also built the new Micoud Market, which the SLP has abandoned for the last 4 years. We constructed 2 community parks, one in New Extension Micoud and one in Monrepo. We completely rehabilitated the Micoud Village Main Road. We also completely rehabilitated the Monrepo Community Road. We rehabilitated the Prale Community Center, constructed numerous community roads, including Hillview Road, Sesendescat Drive, Wen Road, New Extension Micoud Roads, Grass Street, and the St. Marie Road. Hundreds of students benefited from scholarships and school bursaries. We also rehabilitated the Micoud Village Public Laundry by the sea. We constructed a new wing at the Monrepo Passias Combined School and gave the fishermen of Prale a new home. Residents of Micoud also had the benefit of free wireless internet in parts of the constituency. The United Workers' Party delivered for Micoud North. and we're committed to doing it again. Vote Elisha Norbert and the UWP to right the wrongs in Micoud North.
Malwat? Why them Lucians so make them this?
Sui pui.
Some 2.5%
HCSL thing is a tax vibe.
So what that have to do with people getting meg? But just now, to me them people paying VAT already.
Exactly. The tax is calculated on the cost of goods. So one time the price go increase, Uma. The Lucians end up paying more than 15%.
Mama!
Gasa, just imagine $100 go buy less groceries. People getting poor. Things like rent and utility bills go also increase, Gasa.
Real Malawi vibe?
All them things the people doing to stay healthy, like gym, healthy eating, and safety and security, go be harder to get because people ain't have money.
Partner, if them people ain't have enough money, they ain't go have leftover food for us to eat. The bins go be empty. Wow!
Things real happening to them Lucians. Look out for us again soon. We go show you all more.
St. Lucia is at a crossroads. Mismanagement, incompetence, and rising crime under the Philip J.P. administration have left us all struggling. But under Alan Chasney's leadership, our country flourished. Taxes were lowered, 17 health centers were upgraded, the OKE hospital opened, over $12 million in hospital bills were wiped clean, lifting a burden off of our people. Construction of the state-of-the-art St. Jude Hospital began. The forensic lab was reopened. Homicides were 25% lower than they are today. New schools were built, 30% of our roads rehabilitated, and sports facilities across the country received major upgrades, empowering our youth. He successfully led us through the COVID-19 pandemic, winning global recognition for St. Lucia's top care management. Alan Chasney, strong leadership to save our St. Lucia.
Life in St. Lucia has become unbearable. Every day, we feel the crushing weight of a government that's out of touch with the struggles of its people. They've collected millions in taxes on fuel, leaving us paying more for gasoline, cooking gas, kerosene, and diesel. And as if that wasn't enough, the Health and Security Levy has made everything more expensive, adding an additional 2.5% to the cost of goods and services. Bus fares have gone up, bread costs more, electricity, water, food, internet, even your mobile credit, it all costs more. For many St. Lucians, their paychecks don't stretch like they used to. Meanwhile, the government has reduced subsidies on flour, making basic necessities harder to afford. And while they raise prices on you, they've removed 700 people from the public assistance list, leaving our most vulnerable families with no support. St. Lucia is paying the price for a government that refuses to care. How much more can we take? How many more sacrifices must we make while they mismanage our country's finances? It's time to fight back, to stand up for our families, our future, and our country. No more excuses, no more broken promises. We can't afford to stay silent. The high cost of living is suffocating us, but together we can make our voices heard. St. Lucia deserves better. Pierre Pabo.
Senator Lisa Joahir, who also serves as the communications director for the St. Lucia Labour Party, continues to blatantly lie and deceive St. Lucians. In a recent press brief, the SLP spokeswoman tried to deny that St. Lucia's agriculture sector declined by 17% in 2023. These are the facts according to the 2023 Social and Economic Review, a document prepared by the Ministry of Finance. On page 32, the opening paragraph reads, "Based on preliminary estimates, the agriculture sector's real value added declined by 17% in 2023. It went further on pages 33 to 38 to highlight the decline in the various agriculture subsectors. Fishing production declined by 4.6%. Livestock production declined by 17.3%. Chicken production declined by 11.7%. Pork production declined by 41.6%. Egg production declined by 7.8%. Banana production declined by 45.5%. Non-banana crops declined by 17.3%. And regional exports of bananas declined by 54%. The future of St. Lucia's food security is in jeopardy under Labour. The UWP has a plan and is ready to right the wrongs of this reckless SLP administration. Our farmers and fisher folk deserve better. Lisa, Prosper, and Philippe Pierre, pas bon.
Good morning and welcome to everyone. Welcome to the United Workers' Party press briefing for today, June 10th. And we are happy to have the members of the media. We are happy to have those of you who are following us via live stream. And of course, we want to say a special welcome to those of you in the diaspora who always diligently follow the United Workers' Party press briefing. And today for you, we have two of our candidates who will be making presentations. We will have the candidate for Castries Central, Mr. Rush Clark, and we also have one of the deputy political leaders, Senator Dominic Faley. But to start off our presentations this morning, I would like to call on Mr. Rush Clark from Castries Central, our endorsed candidate for Castries Central, who will make his presentation. Mr. Clark.
Good morning to the press, to the people of Castries Central, and to all St. Lucians that care about justice, fairness, and equal treatment on this land we call home. 2 weeks ago, I stood before you and I spoke about land, not just as property, but as opportunity, as dignity, as your birthright. And that message resonated with us because it was deeply rooted in our collective experiences. Today, I come here once again to raise my voice, not in opposition to development, but in opposition to discrimination in development. I am not against progress, and I am not against innovation, but I am definitely against the double standards, the shady deals, and the political games that treat some St. Lucians like they are more worthy than others, all because of public relations, political convenience, and who is sitting in office at the time. I would like to look at a story that was heavily publicized, and in good reason, in the case of Miss Marjorie Lambert. Marjorie's restaurant and bar, located at Casbah, faced a dispute with Cabot St. Lucia, a private developer. It was not an easy journey, but after years of negotiations, a settlement was reached. Cabot not only relocated, but they also built a brand new restaurant for Miss Marjorie. Transferred title of 20,000 square feet of freehold land in her name, a first in St. Lucia's history. On top of that, a cash payout of $1.1 million was issued. Today, Miss Marjorie is not just a sign, a name on a signboard, but she's a legal landowner, a permanent part of the Kazaba experience. Now, to avoid any misrepresentation, let me make this clear. The United Workers' Party is happy for Miss Marjorie, thrilled even. She deserves every square inch and every dollar she received. But when compared to the people in Banannes Bay, are the situations fair across the board? You see, my people, when the cameras are on, you would have ministers rush in to take the moral high ground. So I ask you, don't the residents in Banannes Bay deserve the same treatment? At first, they were promised land. Now, these promises have been reduced to conditional cash payouts. What's good for the goose should be good for the gander. What's good for one St. Lucian should be good for the rest. Why not keep that same energy? Where is that same energy for the people in Banannes Bay? Where is that same respect for the people in Banannes Bay? That community has been home to hard-working fishermen for over 30 years. That community has been home to vendors that support their families for over 30 years. Are we forgetting the words of the Prime Minister? And yet, we listen and we accept a government telling us that negotiations are suddenly confidential. Why was Marjorie's deal broadcast in front page news while the people in Banannes Bay are kept in the dark? Why was it so easy to champion transparency in Kazaba, but conveniently everything is confidential in Banannes Bay? You see, the problem isn't development. It is deliberate discrimination. It is the politicizing and weaponizing of people's livelihoods. It is the calculated way this administration gives the illusion of fairness while making moves in the dark. Let's not forget, this same government, while waving the flag of social equity, is working hand in hand with developers who are being granted access to our coastal lands, only to displace our people without the same dignity and respect. You see the hypocrisy? You see the hypocrisy? My people of Castries Central, my people of St. Lucia, I want you to pay attention to how even this Labour Party is being affected by the stench of this "can I help you" rubbish. When the cameras are on, the media is watching, this government pretends to be the savior. But behind closed doors, deals are cut. People are being marginalized, and we all hide behind confidentiality. You cannot pretend to be the protectors of the people while you orchestrate land transactions that leave them in limbo. You do not get to pose with Marjorie for political gain, then abandon the families in Banannes Bay right in front of us. You cannot be the hero in one community and be a bystander in the other. I guess justice for all is just not specific enough. The hypocrisy of it all. Apparently, it was never about justice. It was all about the optics. As the candidate and future representative for Castries Central, I will continue to raise my voice for the interest of the people. I will continue to raise my voice outside of Parliament. I will raise my voice on the steps of Constitution Park. I will raise my voice at every government office. We need to fight for our citizens. for the quiet, hard-working vendors and fishermen who hustle every day to take care of their families, but yet their livelihoods are constantly being attacked. We need to fight for our lands that has been taken from us and handed on a silver platter and sold off for less than its true value. We need to demand a uniform, transparent land relocation and compensation policy. One that doesn't change depending on who you know or how many headlines you can generate. So to this administration, listen and listen well, because the advice I give right now might just help us all. You may call it development, but if it lacks fairness, it is exploitation. You may call it progress, but if it displaces our people, it is betrayal. And when leaders are surrounded with the theatrics of misrepresentatives, we start to wonder if their focus is truly on leadership or just to put on a show. The people are watching. We are not fooled, and we will not be silenced. We will not hide under the umbrella of fear to speak out, while this government pretends to save our communities only to sell them behind our backs. I challenge this administration. If the deal was good enough for Marjorie, then it should be good enough for the people in Banannes Bay. No more double standards. No more hidden deals. That is why I stand here ready to serve, ready to fight, and ready to shine light in every corner that they want hidden. Castries Central deserves better. St. Lucia deserves better. And with your support, we will make it happen together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. You just heard from the endorsed United Workers' Party candidate for Castries Central, Mr. Rush Clark, speaking on the issue of the Banannes Bay displacement of the residents and business people, the fishermen and residents there. Of course, the way it was done in an undignified manner, you would have thought when the St. Lucia Labour Party was in opposition and they took up the cause of Marjorie Lambert, although at the time the then United Workers' Party administration had negotiated already for her to get a package, they took up her cause, and you would have thought, well, okay, that is the St. Lucia Labour Party's policy, to fight for those who need support. But now that they have found themselves, they have gotten what they wanted, and that is to be in office, to have the levers of power at their disposal, where they are better placed to represent those same people. Now we are seeing their true colors, and we are discovering that it was no policy position by the St. Lucia Labour Party, but only politics being played by the St. Lucia Labour Party. And we're seeing how they're treating the residents and business people and fishermen of Banannes Bay, and that tells us clearly that what they have been saying, what has been their mantra, that people put in people first, that clearly demonstrates in no uncertain terms who the people are that they are putting first. Certainly, it is the investors that they put first at the expense of our nationals. And you saw it again by the representative from the Banannes Bay area, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, when he came on television and radio and made his position clear as to who he was standing with when he took the side of the investors at the resort in Rodney Bay and castigated and condemned and criticized our skilled workers in this country. It is clear for those who did not already know, now there is no doubt who it is that this government is interested in, who they are representing, and who they are putting first. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will now call on our second presenter, the Deputy Political Leader of the United Workers' Party, Senator Dominic Feely, who is also the former Minister for Tourism, and he will be addressing us on some matters related to tourism. Senator Dominic Feely.
Thank you very much, Spider. Good morning to listeners on Facebook and to you members of the media that are here this morning. I came this morning to address some issues that are within the tourism sector at present. Despite much self-praise of success from the Minister of Tourism, Ernest Hilaire, a recent report from the St. Lucia Tourism Authority reveals that the island's main economic driver, it is on a downward slide. You see, back in 2020, as part of the Alan Shastney-led cabinet, we looked at airports around the world during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we saw hundreds of aircraft carriers with no destinations to fly to. Travel experts and news pundits cited this as a crisis, but we viewed this as St. Lucia's opportunity. It was our opportunity to get several flights from strategic gateways. We took the bold move and we went out there and we capitalized on the great demand, with lots of American travelers being locked up at home, having no place to go to. And by making sure that St. Lucia was one of the first to get out of the gates, to position itself, to promote itself, to say to the world that we had perfected the protocols to reestablish ourselves as a tourist destination. That was the seed that buoyed and bolstered the great opportunity that we have today. And so the result of that boldness, of that confidence in our health professionals and our tourism technocrats that met and put together a set of protocols that would ensure the safe reopening of our destination, that would ensure that we live the mantra of lives and livelihoods, saw that we gained a significant amount of attention. People and travelers who didn't know St. Lucia before had an opportunity to hear about our great destination. And so the result was confidence from the aviation sector. We had American Airlines, one of the largest airline companies in the world, responding very positively. And the result was this: American Airlines flying for the first time in the history of tourism development in this country from Chicago. American Airlines, for the first time in the history of St. Lucia, flying from Dallas to St. Lucia directly. Never happened before in the history. Now, the Dallas flight was crucial because Texas is a year-round destination, in that Texans try to escape a hot summer and a cold winter, leaving the opportunity for destinations like St. Lucia to profit significantly from the Texas market. AA out of JFK has not been around for a long time. After many, many decades, we had not had a direct flight with American Airlines from the major gateway of JFK in New York. American Airlines out of Philadelphia to St. Lucia, another flight of historic proportions, making sure that, again, people out of that Pennsylvania and neighboring states had an opportunity to fly directly to St. Lucia and not having to connect through Miami or other gateways. JetBlue from Newark, New Jersey, for the first time in the history of tourism development. This happened as well. And this was because we were bold. We were bold and we saw results. We got a second Miami flight coming out of American Airlines straight to St. Lucia. When you compare what is happening on the U.S. airlift sector today, you will see that it pales in comparison to all of these flights that I've just introduced. Unfortunately, American Airlines out of Chicago have disappeared. American Airlines out of Dallas have disappeared. American Airlines out of JFK is no longer. American Airlines out of Philadelphia is gone. JetBlue out of New Jersey no longer exists. And the second Miami flight is topsy-turvy. Sometimes it's on, and most times of the year it's not. Virgin Atlantic has just announced that it's leaving town. And TUI has just said that they're relocating their operations to other more serious, profitable destinations. This points to a crisis of airlift that has been affecting the country and of which the opposition has been warning the government for several years now, as far back as 2022, that if something was not done to address this precipitous slide of our airlift sector, then the destination would be in significant problems. The robust development of our airlift sector back in the COVID pandemic time was also accompanied by aggressive television and digital advertising campaigns. As a result, St. Lucia had the fastest recovery from the crippling COVID-19 pandemic in the Eastern Caribbean. By July of 2020, we had recovered 75 of our pre-pandemic US business. We were ahead of countries like Barbados that would normally have more arrivals than St. Lucia. In fact, Barbados had less than 50% of the total arrivals that we had in just a short few months of opening. Several of our hotels, restaurants, and attractions were all open for business, creating a holistic experience for the tourists that came here, but further allowing us the opportunity to perfect the mantra of creating livelihoods while we try to protect the people of St. Lucia from the COVID-19 pandemic. While we took this bold and strategic step, Ernest Hilaire, the now tourism minister, was on the sidelines in opposition preaching doom and gloom. He famously said that we should not bring death to the doorsteps of St. Lucia. And I remember clearly that at our first NEMAC meeting to discuss the COVID-19 pandemic, within 2 days of being the minister, after a whole campaign of us bringing death to kill St. Lucians, Hilaire took a bout turn and changed his views on tourism and started to preach about the goodness of tourism. He cited tourism as a panacea for our short and medium term economic aspirations. We went on from 180,000 visitors to over 200,000 US arrivals. I'm saying all of this to show you that we left an incredible momentum for this St. Lucia Labour Party administration that followed us. Unfortunately, they didn't understand the gift they received on a platter, and instead of continuing the great momentum that we left them, they squandered it. They were obsessed with trying to erase the legacy of the work that was done by the men and women of the Alan Chasney cabinet. They changed the names of organizations like Village Tourism to Community Tourism. They put on cosmetic dress-ups and makeup on programs that we left them, not understanding the deeper essence and the philosophy that was behind those initiatives to bolster and continue to grow tourism in the country. Therefore, it comes to me as no surprise when the St. Lucia Tourism Authority published a most dismal outcome for tourism arrivals for the first 4 months of this year. The St. Lucia Tourism Authority latest disclosure tells us this about tourism arrivals from January to April. It says in January, tourism arrivals declined by 2%. In February, tourism arrivals declined by 2%. In March, it declined by 7%. And in April, it also failed to grow, registering 0% growth. Year to date, April, compared to the same period last year, the destination arrivals is down a total of 3%. The SLTA also outlined serious problems in two of our largest and most important source markets, the UK and Canada. Here's what it says for the UK. It says that tourism arrivals from the UK, the second most important market for our country, declined by 25%. So 1 in every 4 UK guests have stopped coming to St. Lucia, a massive 25% in a market that has one of the longest average stays. Very crucial in terms of bed nights and in terms of the length of stay to our destination. This will have a crippling blow on a number of the locally owned hotels, on Airbnbs, on tours and attractions, and the economic penetration that would not come with other markets. The Canadian market, another important market to our tourism destination, has also suffered massive declines by 23%. This is not 10, this is not 5 or 2 or 3. This is 23% decline in the Canadian market. So 25% in the UK, 23% in Canada. But the minister boasts of success. I would like to say to the minister that he needs to review that position about where our tourism industry actually is at this present time. St. Lucia Tourism Authority, in the report published, is also at odds with claims by the tourism minister that the industry is enjoying record-breaking success. It says, January to April compared to the same period last year, stayover arrivals recorded a 3% decline. The cruise sector is down by 11%. Remember, he told us this was a bumper cruise year. But I maintain that the taxi drivers were complaining. I maintain that the vendors were complaining. I maintain that the people who run speedboats were complaining. People who are on the internet looking to lure cruise ship passengers to do tours were complaining that the volume of business was significantly down. And here we are seeing the proof in the pudding, where 11% of the cruise arrivals to the destination is down. The yachting sector also did not enjoy a good year, because 9% of yacht arrivals are down in St. Lucia. When you look at most of the ports, Marigot, Rodney Bay Marina, Soufriere, and some of the major anchorages, they're all recording significant concerns within the yachting industry. Now, we know that this sector is a sector that is most exposed to security concerns. And this brings me to a letter published by the SLHTA recently, where it wrote to the police commissioner and highlighted several of the concerns faced by the destination and visitors to our shores of increased harassment, increased robberies, increased break-ins, and increased criminal activity against tourists, particularly in the Gros-Islet-Rodney Bay area. And they outlined several concerns, citing difficulties in obtaining police reports, difficulties in making reports, a lack of access to the police station in Rodney Bay, which has remained closed for several years now. And so, no wonder we see this decline. No wonder we see these bad outcomes. While St. Lucia has recorded this, I want to say to the minister to take a look at how well our neighbors are doing. And I want to show you what the CTO and analytics have shown about St. Vincent. Latest statistics from St. Vincent suggest that they have grown by 12.8%. 12.8, our neighbor next door. Just a few years of getting an international airport. Dominica, 10.4%, just up the road. Antigua, 6.7%. Barbados, 2.4%. So if St. Vincent can grow double digits, Dominica can grow double digits, Antigua can grow by almost 7%. What is St. Lucia's problem? What is our problem, Mr. Minister? Why can't we grow? Why in the first 4 months of 2025, we have not been able to grow not an inch? We have declined significantly in all the months. We have declined in hotel stays. We have declined in cruise ship arrivals, and we have declined in yacht arrivals. And so what we have is a crisis. And this crisis means that there's less business for Airbnbs. There are less trips for taxi drivers. There are less business for speedboat charters. There's less business for car rentals. And crisis in sales for the vendors of our country that depend on the tourism industry. Now, the minister have presented to the public several excuses for the bad start to the year. Most recently, the Minister of Tourism told us that he lost 500 rooms, which is approximately 10% of the total hotel room stock on the island. Now, if the Economic and Social Review suggests that the national hotel occupancy is at 73%, it tells us that almost 30% of our rooms remain empty. And a friend of mine is very famous for saying that the most expensive room to a hotel is an unoccupied room. And so 70% of our rooms last year have been full, while 30% remained empty. Those are the facts reported by your government. If 30% of your rooms are empty anyway, it becomes inconsequential whether you have lost 10% of your room stock. And so your problems of a lack of performance, Mr. Minister, is not about losing 500 rooms. It is deeper than that. It is a lack of marketing. It is a lack of airlift. It is a lack of strategy. It is a lack of proactiveness. I mean, I have received so many calls about this New York Yankee Stadium pitch that the minister and a whole entourage from the Ministry of the Tourism and SLTA went to do. And people were asking me, in this day of social media and in this day of television advertising, could we not have reached millions more by investing in advertising, in pushing out the brand St. Lucia, in making sure that we remain front and center in the minds of the consumer? And so consequently, we are in dire straits. We are in the place that we are in. The rooms under construction cannot be used as an excuse when hundreds of our rooms, hotel rooms that is, and Airbnbs are empty each night. The bigger problem confronting the tourism sector is an airlift crisis. One can take a look at the Economic and Social Review. And when you look at the review, it shows you plainly that there have been over 2,000 change in terms of the aircraft movement of scheduled flights between George Charles and Urenora Airport. And so from 2019, if you look at the number combined, you would have seen a significant change of almost 2,000. Now, bearing in mind that most of the equipment used would be ATR, which are 72 seats, and the Boeing 737s, which would have about 165 seat configuration in the cabins, and A320s. It would mean, therefore, that the destination on average would have lost from 2019 to now 320,000 air seats. I submit to you, Mr. Minister, that that is the problem. That is the work that you need to do. You need to go back and get those 320,000 air seats so that the additional rooms that are coming, the additional Airbnbs that are coming, the existing empty capacity that people have now, especially in these lean months in the summer, not enough festivals will be able to contain those months. And so what we have to do is to make sure that we go back to the days of robust airlift management, where we can make sure that there's enough capacity coming on the planes so that there's business for every single person in the accommodation sector. That's the deeper problem. We also see that our tourism infrastructure continue to fall on hard times. I saw with shocking horror the staff at the airport at Urenora catching dripping water from the roof of our international airport as they're checking people out. They're using garbage bins and buckets to catch drips and leaks from the roof. That's how bad we have allowed our airport to deteriorate. This is sad for a country that says that our tourism sector is the #1 sector. It really leaves a lot to be desired in the way that we are managing the sector.
Miserably. Compare this, on the other hand, to the United Workers' Party when in government. That is when the industry takes off, and that is when development in this country takes off. So it is clear what our problem is and how it is going to be solved. At this point, I'd like to invite if there are any questions for our presenters. Yes? Go ahead.
Mr. Fede.
A question for Senator Fede.
I know that during the last administration there was a plan to redevelop Port Castries to make the city more vibrant and to have more nightlife, especially during the cruise season. Did that involve the residents and operators at Banannes, and what was the plan for these people?
Well, thank you very much for that question. You've sprung to mind so many things that we had in mind and what we have accomplished and what has been passed on to this administration. So I'll go back to phase 1 of the market project. If you go on social media, you will realize that from the very beginning, the United Workers' Party administration looked at downtown Castries, Jeremy Street, the whole market area, along the waterfront. And we thought that this was the most important piece of real estate as it relates to the development of tourism in the country. We saw this as one of the most crucial tourism destinations. And we felt that we needed to integrate the fresh fruits coming from places like Millet and from Grace in Viewfort South. And we needed to somehow connect that with these hundreds of thousands of cruise ship passengers coming off the ship. So we opened up phase 1 of the market redevelopment project. Phase 2 was very advanced in the design phase. Then we completed the design and took to tender the Box Park project, which is now the Anchorage. And this administration, they got to cut the ribbon. That was the easiest part. But the most difficult part was working with the marketing board, convincing them that this was the way to go to upgrade the entire area. And so when I pass next to Massey's stores and I see that building that Richard Frederick said that he did, I laugh at times because I know that it had absolutely nothing to do with Richard Frederick, but absolutely everything to do with the ethos and the vision for the whole Castries waterfront by the United Workers' Party. I can say to you that in our plans, more specific to your question, that yes, we looked at the Banannes Bay area and we envisioned a beautiful integrated village tourism initiative where we would have created one of the best fish fries in the world at Banannes, where we could have used the fishermen, their catch, help them to develop their facility, but never to push them out in favor of a foreign company, but always to work with them and to integrate them into what we were trying to doing. As we integrated the vendors, we trained over 200 vendors in product development. We didn't push the vendors out from the market, recognizing the value of what the entire market offers to the harbor and the whole experience of the port. We saw the vendors as able stakeholders, and that's why we trained 200 of them in sales techniques, in product development, trying to say to them, look, if you can improve your product, if you can improve your point of sale systems, if you can make it easier for the guests coming off the ship with their credit cards to do business with you, then you would have increased sales and a more profitable opportunity.
We've heard recently that the vendors at the arcade are going to be displaced because of this GPH redevelopment, and the minister is planning to provide them with caravans to ply their trade. A lot of the vendors believe that this is inappropriate, so to speak. Was there a plan in that same Castries redevelopment thing to renovate the vendors arcade, and what exactly was that plan?
See, there again, I have to say to you that you have to go back to a philosophy about tourism. The Alan Chasney vision for tourism is to use tourism as a sustainable development tool. If a government does not have that vision, does not see tourism in that way, if you see tourism as an industry where big corporations are going to push out smaller businesses, and you don't see the opportunity to bring small businesses up and make them big companies within the tourism sector, then you will never be able to envision the opportunity that exists for the vendors. Then you will do caravans. Then you will push people out of Banannes Bay. And so what is necessary is to work with your vendors, is to bring them along into the new arcade that you're doing. As part of the upgrades, they should be essential. They should be at the front of this. We should make loans available. I'm telling you, Eldridge, I was proud during COVID. I watched my boss, the Minister of Finance, sign a deal with the CARICOM Development Fund. Mr. Roddy Suma, the CEO, was there. And we placed $10 million at the St. Lucia Development Bank for small tourism businesses to borrow that money so that if they want to step up and upgrade and to be more competitive, that there is money. And then we had the village tourism project that focused on the infrastructure as well. The policy thrust to make sure that smaller companies had the same access to incentives as big companies did was made possible by us. We made that available, and this government continued it and brought the legislation to Parliament. But there were many drafts written already in our time to make sure that A, people had access to incentives, B, they had access to financing, a problem for many small and medium-sized businesses. And then the third thing is to give them the technical assistance. And then most importantly is to inspire them to believe that they too can be world-class. Thank you.
Before we end, let me just say, just to add to what Senator Dominic was saying, we must bear in mind too that in terms of the plans and the vision of the United Workers' Party administration, there would certainly be no GPH to push out the vendors and fishermen from Banannes Bay. Our policies and our approach was all-inclusive, where we saw the locals as big stakeholders in what was happening, and all our plans incorporated the locals and not push them out. And it is interesting in the question I heard mention of caravans. In other words, go. That's what it means, go. When they give you a caravan, go. You know, because if you wanted them there, the infrastructure that would be created with them in mind. And so that is not the kind of approach we take. And, you know, I heard Senator Dominic talk about figures going down. I'm not into the tourism business like Senator Fede is, but I would have thought, given what is happening in Canada, between Canada and the United States of America with Trump's approach, that everywhere else seemed to be benefiting from the redirection of Canadian tourists, that we, given the relations that we have had with Canada over the years, would have benefited as well from a growth in the numbers coming from Canada. But I guess without a vision, without a plan, you simply perish. And that is what is happening to St. Lucia now. We are seeing all our gains going down, and it is about time that we arrest the situation and bring back sanity, vision, and planning to what is happening in this country so that we can once again experience the upward development that we're experiencing. I do not want to hear those words of declining and so on anymore. That should not be what is applicable to St. Lucia. I am saying to the general public that given the plans of the United Workers' Party, given the vision of the leadership of the United Workers' Party that the St. Lucia Labour Party does not have, we would be in a better place today. But all is not lost. We can recapture the promise of a better future by returning the United Workers' Party. I want to thank my presenters, Senator Fede and Mr. Rush Clark. Rush Clark, endorsed candidate for Castries, and of course you heard him speak passionately about what is happening in Banannes, a stone throw away from the constituency that he will be representing. And he knows too that with the plans of the United Workers' Party, his constituents would benefit from the developments that would take place around the Castries Harbour. I want to thank the members of the media. I want to thank you for the question. I want to thank the listeners, those of you who are following us on live stream. And I always end by thanking the people in the diaspora who continue to show your interest and concern about what is happening in your country. I want to say thanks to all of you. Have a good day. And join us once again next week, Tuesday, for another United Workers' Party press briefing. But in the meantime, on Thursday, you can join me for Meet the Opposition. And unlike yesterday, which was a holiday, next Monday, we'll be back with Like It Is. Of course, you'll hear the announcement for the venue for Sunday Live very soon. So stay tuned. Keep listening to the United Workers' Party, where you hear the truth. You get the information that you need to shine the light and to give you the hope that St. Lucia so requires to return to development and prosperity. Thank you very much. Have a good day.